Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
And joining us now here on Bloomberg TV and radio as we broadcast live from Chicago is Democratic Congresswoman Suzan DelBene of Washington. She is chair of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, DCCC. It is essentially your job, Congresswoman, to get as many Democrats in that House as possible. Clearly, as we've seen in the data, you have more money in the bank. It does feel like the energy here in Chicago may provide something of a wind at your backs. How many seats do you think Democrats could safely target to flip now?
Well, we need to net 4 more seats to take back the majority. So that is a key number. In fact, we have some pins out there that say 4 more and 24. We need 4 more seats to take back the gavels to make Hakeem Jeffries the Speaker of the House. So we are working hard across the country. We have 30 candidates. We call them our red to blue candidates. So they are looking to either keep open seats that we have or flip seats. And so incredible opportunities. And they're in New York and California and Iowa and Nebraska and Pennsylvania and Alabama. So all over the country, incredible opportunities. And we want a strong governing majority. So we're going to work hard to win as many as we can.
Well, suddenly that seems like a real possibility that in a way did not 4 or 5 weeks ago. And the reporting has been pretty consistent that after the debate, the presidential debate, it was House members who started to fear the ramifications of Joe Biden staying in this race. It was Joe Biden's realization that losing the House in this next election was not an option. What does that say about the role your chamber is playing here in the Democratic Party and his decision to leave the race?
Well, we've been running ahead this whole cycle. People have seen the chaos, the dysfunction, the extremism on the Republican side, and it's nowhere a better example than the House of Representatives, where you had speaker elections and them kicking out their own speaker, the ongoing challenge they've had to just fund the government. Yet you were still poised to lose seats, according to some. But we've been in an incredible position and had strong support across the country. So our candidates have been running ahead. They've had strong fundraising throughout this cycle. And our candidates and our incumbents are outraising their Republican counterparts. And at the DCCC, we're outraising our Republican counterparts too. So we just raised $17.6 million last month, $6 million more than the Republicans. We have more cash on hand. So we're in a strong position. And when you take all the energy and enthusiasm that you see here in Chicago, you see that on the ground all across the country. Volunteers turning out to help knock on doors, to make phone calls. There's a huge amount of energy and enthusiasm, and we're seeing it in every part of the country, and that's going to be key to helping us win.
Well, and we've been paying attention to a few specific demographic groups, the idea that Latino and Black voters may be more enthusiastic. Now, suburban women as well. We actually spoke earlier today with Tara Setmayer. She is CEO of the Seneca Project, who was trying to get women elected, Kamala Harris specifically, and she had this to say about mobilizing that vote.
The fact that the Republicans chose a ticket that wasn't exactly friendly to women's needs or rights, and that they're taking that for granted and almost disrespectfully insulting women like this, they're almost doing our job for us as far as messaging is concerned, because women can see through this. They can see through the insults. They see through the childless cat lady comments. And, every week it's a different set of insults for women, different demographics of women. And that mobilizes women.
How is the DCCC looking at trying to target and mobilize that specific group of voters?
Well, absolutely, she's right. They are making the case, and they've made the case since the Dobbs decision. They're trying to take away reproductive freedom across the country. They want a national abortion ban. So that alone has been mobilizing women. We've heard the terrible stories of women being denied basic health care. So women are energized. We know in special elections since November of 2022, when abortion's been on the ballot, Democrats have turned out, and we've seen increased Democratic performance, and we've won, even in places like Kansas and Ohio and Virginia, in a special election in New York 3, where we gained 1 more seat. Even in Alabama, where a state legislative race, a seat that was very red, flipped to a Democrat. After that Supreme Court IVF decision. There's strong, that was a 30-point swing, by the way, strong support. So we know abortion is going to be on the ballot in many of our battleground states across the country. Florida, Arizona, New York. This is really going to be critical for folks, because women are going to turn out, but people across the country, this is a critical issue, and voters are with us on this. So we're going to see enthusiasm and turnout across the country. And again, another reason why we're in a very strong position. You
spoke at the convention last night at the DNC here, sounding pretty optimistic about your odds for taking back the House. Here's what she said.
In 2022, we came within 7,000 votes of the majority. So it's within our power to win these critical races. This election is about our rights, our freedoms, our democracy, and our future.
I want you to walk us down ballot, or maybe across the map is a better way to see it here, because we spend so much time talking about the presidential race in these 7 states in a world in which none of the others matter. How much more complicated is the calculation for someone like yourself, as Kailey said, tasked with getting House members elected? Because your map looks a lot different than the presidential race. How local does it get? How different is that exercise?
It's a great question and is very different. People think about the presidential, which is very focused on swing states, or the Senate, where it is very focused on a few races because they aren't all up every year. But we are up every 2 years. So our map is over 60 seats across the country, and we have important races in states that are blue, like New York and California. We also have opportunities in swing districts, if you look at places like Michigan or Arizona, but we also have states like Iowa and Nebraska, Montana, where we have opportunities to pick up seats, even Alabama. So we're everywhere across the country. Absolutely, our candidates are focused on the issues of these districts. And we have independent thinkers, folks who are very results-oriented, running all across the country. And, that is a big difference between the House and some of the other races, and definitely the presidential. It will be very local. We've got a lot of races and incredible candidates. And so they are talking to folks in their districts, talking about the issues that matter. They want to come back to Congress to govern.
Well, so as we talk about your fundraising and the idea that you are outraising your Republican counterparts, when it's so many races, once you spread that money out, maybe it's just a lot that it has to go a very long way. We've had a few conversations about the sudden burst of fundraising we've seen after Harris has entered the race. Do you worry that that's going to taper off, or do you think this pace of donation is sustainable?
Well, we've been running ahead this entire cycle, so we've had strong fundraising and been outraising Republicans for the House because people know how close we are to taking back the majority. But we had our biggest online fundraising day after Vice President Harris announced her candidacy. We clearly see more and more momentum. And it's not only to the committee, the DCCC, but also to our candidates. I mean, they are outraising their opponents too. So important because those resources are critical for their races. We can support them, but they are also doing a great job directly themselves.
Well, I know you're running back into the hall. Have a fun night tonight. You don't have the pressure of speaking this time. You just get
Exactly. Makes it a little easier.
I'm sure that's true. Democratic Congresswoman Suzan DelBene of Washington, we thank you. And we should note that Michael Bloomberg, founder and majority owner of Bloomberg LP and this network, is a major donor to the House Majority PAC, the largest super PAC backing congressional Democratic candidates.